Today we're going to provide even more reasons why you should probably be a little bit worried, a little bit scared about Trump picking Myron Ebell to lead the EPA's transition. Now, we don't know for sure that he's actually going to end up leading the EPA, but he is obviously the most likely choice since he's the one who's going to be transitioning it from a department that manages the environment, tries to care for the climate, to one that's mainly designed to push clean coal on us? I don't know. I guess we'll see, but we're going to go over his history right now and try to predict what might come. So just to remind you of the sort of guy this is, what he thinks about perhaps the most important issue facing humanity right now, which is climate change, let's roll this first video.
President Obama and his allies in the environmental movement have been talking about all the terrible effects of global warming that we're already seeing, but in fact, global temperatures, the average temperature for about the last 18 years has been flat. That's according to both surface data, satellite data, and balloon data. They all agree. The models say we should have seen a lot of warming, but what they're now claiming is that the effects of global warming precede the cause. We haven't had any global warming for 18 years, but we're seeing all these terrible effects. That's not my view of how science works, but perhaps these people are in a postmodern scientific world where the effect precedes the cause.
We're going to return a little bit later to what might be influencing his view of how science works and how qualified he is to have a view of how science works. But lest you believe that, so one crazy doesn't believe in climate change, but it'll be Trump at the end of the day who decides, here's a little mashup that JR put together of some of the comments from Donald Trump during the campaign.
Department of Environmental Protection, where they're actually going around and causing damage as opposed to saving damage, tremendous amounts of money.
Okay.
Environmental protection, what they do is a disgrace. Every week they come out with new regulations. They make it impossible.
Who's going to protect the environment?
They will be fine with the environment. Department of Environmental, I mean, the DEP is killing us environmentally.
We Googled it. I didn't get anything at the federal level. The DEP, the environmental.
Well, look, John, to be fair, the DEP has been killing us. And we'll be fine with the environmental.
We'll be fine with the environment. Well, why wouldn't we? You know, you just let the companies self-regulate and you end up with, I don't know, Flint?
No, John, we're saving the damage. And all the balloon...
It's supposed to be saving damage.
Yeah. All the balloon data in my head indicates that we're totally fine. So we've elected a knucklehead who, of course, selects other knuckleheads to run departments.
Yes.
But like on a historic level, because George Bush was not a bright guy. I mean, that is a huge understatement. But he had a lot of people around him who picked standard Republicans. And they did a ton of damage. But he didn't bring in nut jobs who were like off building Frankenstein. And they come out of the lab and they're like, okay, I'm ready. What are we doing with the Department of Environmental?
Yeah. Except to some extent, the neocons that he brought in, and those are the ones that Trump is bringing back. After criticizing George W. Bush's foreign policy throughout this election, he now brings all of those guys back in. So we want to run through a little bit more of this guy, give you an idea of who he is. First, some more comments on the global warming. He said a couple of years ago, there has been a little bit of warming, but it's been very modest, which is not true, as we've reported many times. And well within the range for natural variability, also not true. And whether it's caused by human beings or not, it's nothing to worry about.
Oh, that's interesting.
Back last year, he called Pope Francis's encyclical on climate change scientifically ill-informed, economically illiterate, intellectually incoherent, and morally obtuse. It is also theologically suspect, and large parts of it are leftist drivel, coming from the Pope.
By the way, we should combine church and state, unless the Pope turns out to be a leftist, in which case, God damn it, what do we need the Pope for? Okay? What would he know about theology anyway?
That's true. Now, he doesn't just believe that it's probably not happening, but it might actually be a good thing. He says, yes, rising sea levels, if they happen, would be bad for a lot of people, but a warming trend would be good for other people. Life in many places would become more pleasant. He's an optimist. He's a glass half full kind of guy.
Please believe me.
Now, what's interesting about all of this is that he's critiquing the scientific literacy of Pope Francis, who has a scientific degree. He talks about his view of science. Now, he graduated from Colorado College with a Bachelor of Arts degree in philosophy and later studied political theory in the London School of Economics. Those are both fine degrees, perfectly fine degrees, and I'd be the last person to attack someone who wants to study philosophy until that person starts going against literally tens of thousands of climate scientists and says that he knows better than them when he doesn't know anything about any of that. Philosophy is an interesting discipline. Political theory is an interesting discipline, although in my experience it goes way too close to theology in a lot of areas. It has nothing to do with the scientific method or understanding how scientists work, analyzing balloon data. You don't do that in philosophy very often. And he's the guy talking down to thousands of climate scientists and saying, it'll make the summer nicer in some areas.
Wrong.
Wrong. In fact, it will not.
And
we've
John,
got more, too.
John, I don't know if you know, but he also has a degree in
Sarabies!
I think it's a PhD, actually. He's got a doctorate in sarabies. So beyond just climate change, Ebell has called the Clean Power Plan illegal. He said last year that he hoped the next president would undo the EPA power plant regulations and some of the other regulations that are very harmful to our economy. He's been a vocal critic of the Paris Climate Accord, calling Obama's joining of the treaty unconstitutional. And lest you believe that the damage he can do to our environment is just like to the climate at large, he also hates animals. He worked years ago in an effort to rework the Endangered Species Act so it would involve as little regulation as possible and be more respectful of property rights. This guy hates animals. He might literally be up for wiping out bald eagles. We don't know yet. We'll get back to you.
So he has been described by Greenpeace as a climate criminal, and he brags about it.
Yeah, and a climate villain, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, ha ha, I'm a climate criminal, according to Greenpeace. That's the guy who's now picking all the jobs at the DEP. By the way, knuckleheads, it's the EPA. Yeah. Okay, you might want to know the department you're about to destroy.
Yeah.
So now the most important part of this. Trump is totally misreading his mission. Okay, he doesn't have a mandate at all. Do you know this? This is amazing. The day that he got elected, Trump's unfavorability rating was 58.5%. It's beyond unprecedented. No one's ever won an election when 58.5% of the country doesn't like you.
As a Republican, normally you have to be president for about 6 years to get that unfavorable.
That's right. So the vote was not, generally speaking, for Donald Trump. It was against Hillary Clinton. It was against the establishment. So if he thinks, oh, they voted for me, kind of, I lost the popular vote.
By now over 1 million votes and climbing.
Yeah. But hey, I won it by, 11,000 in Michigan and 27,000 in Wisconsin, or whatever those small numbers are. So I have a mandate to do every kooky thing that I, imagine in my head. You're misreading the election results. So I'll get you more details right now. In Florida, remember, he won Florida. But 2/3 of the voters on election day in exit polling said that they want more action taken in fixing climate change. They believe climate change is real, and 2/3 of them say, for God's sake, do something about it. Now, what they're going to do is go in the opposite direction. No. Trump, if the voters elected you for anything, it was two simple things. Jobs, however you're going to get the jobs. You said tariffs, and I'm going to kill the trade deals, et cetera, and I'm awesome, and I'm tremendous, and I'm going to bring you jobs. Jobs and end the corruption, because you said it was crooked, it was rigged, and, and people hate the corruption. And not only Republicans, Democrats hate it, and enough independents hate it that they voted for you. That doesn't mean for them to say, oh, have at it, Hoss, destroy the planet, kill the animals, get rid of the EPA.
Yeah.
It's
Strangle a panda on live television.
I bet I could do it on Fifth Avenue and get away with it. Okay. So when he does these things that are in fact deeply unpopular, well, his ratings are going to reflect it. All of a sudden, people are going to wake up and go, well, I hated the system, and I threw a brick through their window, but oops, now the draft's coming in, and it's kind of cold in here, and wait a minute, this schmuck isn't even doing the thing I told him to do.
Yeah.
Right? So stuff like this, he doesn't know it, but it's going to kill him.
I hope so.
Yeah, because
That's going to be a big part of our job for the next 4 years, is making sure people understand what actually happens.
Yeah, and look, this is part of why you should never vote for Trump in the first place, because, and this is the thing that we most emphasize, because some of this stuff cannot be undone.
Yeah.
When they eviscerate the EPA and we don't participate in trying to combat climate change for 4 years. Even if it's 2 years until he learns his lesson and starts to backpedal, we've done untold damage that we can't undo. So even if it helps us politically to get rid of this clown in 4 years, no one should root for this. This is a terrible catastrophe.
Yeah, and look, when they try to pull us out of the Paris Climate Accord, if the other more than 200 countries can stay strong and continue, and there are economic reasons why they would want to, not to mention health reasons and all that, then the damage that Trump can do as president will be limited in that regard in terms of global climate change. But if us pulling out leads China and India to say, well, hell, if they're not going to do it, then why are we going to go to all the trouble? Then that's possibly the end for stopping climate change, for stopping limiting it to the 2 degrees Celsius that even with the climate accord we're not on track to limit it to. And so that's going to be the biggest warning sign if other countries start to pull out, especially large population countries.
If they go, hell's Ebells, I'm out of here.
See, I was just about to give you credit. I wasn't here for the meeting. I like it.
Yeah, no, it wasn't me either.
Oh, okay, good. Well, whoever thought it was good.
And what if the Indians say,
Abi Kibar, Trump, Sarkar.
then we're in a lot of
pretty good,
trouble.
You want to watch the whole 2-hour show every day, any way you want, anytime you want, with any device you want? That's why we made membership. tytnetwork.com/join. I know what you're thinking.
Give me a break.
You didn't know about it before, but now you do. tytnetwork.com/join.